my stream orientated. Right, so I wanted to do a little talk about magnet motors, and I'm going to explain a little bit. In 2016, I did a video about magnetic switching. At the time, I did not consider to make a magnet motor because there was a lot of stuff that I was still working out, and obviously I decided I prefer to work on a generator initially as my main focus. But I observed there's a huge interest in magnet motors. I'm trying to find my pencil. Hang on, it's down here. Right, I don't want to write on my drawing and then not be able to rub it out. So, right, so I've modelled this thing up in SketchUp. This is just a preliminary design. So, why didn't I build a magnet motor in 2016? Well, I did actually have a go at making something back then, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't understand at the time. I decided to focus on my generators because it was something that needed a lot more exploration, because one of the important things about a magnet motor is how to control the flux. Now, when I was working on the initial magnetic switch, which a lot of people seem to have been interested in looking at, I think it's nearly 5,000 views so far. I didn't have all the materials necessary to basically build such a device, because what's required is more accurate control of the flux and magnetic field, so that you can basically taper it in such a way that you don't get reverse drag. And since that time, I have come to the understanding, a better understanding, that the way to do that is to bring the focal flux point to an axis point, which is in the center. And you need a very strong magnetic field on the exterior. So what we do to do that, to get rotation, I know that a lot of people on the internet have been trying to do this and they've failed, and the reason for that is for every action equals an equal opposite reaction situation. They haven't been able to overcome the opposite reaction, which is where it hits a sticking point. So how do you get rid of the sticking point? Well, you want to bring the sticking point to the central axis. So I'm going to explain how we do that. So what we need is a very strong polarized field down a piece of ferrite. Now the ferrite is going to go down this slot. I showed it in my 2016 video. So let's say we have south. Sorry, I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's pencil. So now this is going to become the stator, and the reason for that is because there's a lot of mass, weight to it, and I want to keep the weight stationary, and the part that rotates, I want to keep that fairly lightweight. So initially I was going to have this rotating, but I thought, no, it's better if we have the stator, because it's less complicated. The actual rotor part is going to be less complicated, so we can be easy to balance as well. So we have a strong south field coming along the core, which will be in here. Right, so there's the arrow for that. Now, obviously, as a rotor, either a magnet or a piece of iron or some other material is entering this part here, what we need to do is prevent it from basically being repulsed by this south field. And the way to do that is quite simple, really. You have a north field magnet right here attached to the side of the piece of ferrite. So the north field is going to draw the stator in, right? So our stator is going to be moving into this field. So we have a north field here, but on the other side of the magnet, which is attached to the side of this piece of ferrite, it's going to be south. So we have south actually again here. So we actually create an amplification of south coming down here. So what we effectively have is a line that deviates to the left hand side because we are pushing south towards this corner here. So what we have is north, which is the attraction point. So this will create the entry point. So our rotor will come in. It will be drawn in quite strongly by the north field, which will be effectively on this side. Right. So the north will be pulling this in. And when it gets to this point, the south takes over. The south field takes over. And we have a deviation point, and which will give us our propulsion. And so our propulsion will continue in this direction. So what we need to do then is prevent this south field from pulling back on our stator, our rotor, sorry. So that we have propulsion coming in this direction, but we don't want to get stuck on this south field. So what we have to do is collapse the field at that point. This is what this assembly is. At this point, remember, we have south coming down here, so we have north on the back side of the magnet here. So we will couple this. We will couple this to the south, but this will be north. Right, so we'll have north coming down this channel here, and I'm going to be using Alnico magnets because the Alnico magnets in this slot it'll be possible to attenuate. We need to collapse the field at this point. We don't really want to have a traction here, we want to have a traction over there. But what we need to do is collapse the field at this point so that as it's passing, it's no longer going to stick to the south, so the south will be tapered off, which is why these are angled inward slightly. So these are all Alnicos as well, so there's all Alnicos here and here and here, and these Alnicos will basically be pulling a small amount of north field to collapse this south field, so that as it passes it will no longer be sticking to the south. So the field will be drawn inwards back to the central axis, and then it will continue with momentum. It will free run. It should free run past these points. It should continue until it's re-attracted by another north over here. Right, and then the whole process should begin again, because we want a null field as it's passing here to a point where it's no longer pulling or pushing or doing anything. We want the field to collapse at this point. So this can take over, this north field can do the same thing as what we had here, which is to pull the rotor around. So we're basically cancelling the field out by drawing it into the central axis, which is a long way from the rotor assembly, so that we don't actually have any we have to control the field completely all the way around, because if we don't fully control the field, then the whole thing is just going to come to a grinding halt, which is what happens with most people, because you need to bring that flux into the central axis to basically cancel it out, so it's not going to affect the actual rotor that's moving. So we have another point where the north is going to pull in. So this is about changing this is all about changing the actual leveraging. So what we're going to have instead is again a of rotational forces coming through in this direction. So it comes through, and then the forces will effectively be collapsed into the central point, and then this one will be pulling again. Same field, same pole, south. So, well, north. It starts with north, and this north is very closely coupled. It's a very shallow magnet, very thin magnet, so that it only sees north for a brief moment. And this is just another piece of ferrite on this side, and this piece of ferrite is loosely coupled to this. We don't want it strongly coupled because we'll end up with south coming down and going this way as well. So we have a loose piece of ferrite just at this top end here, just to bring the north in, so that as it passes, it can then get pushed by the south again. So this is south, and all of this is south again. So we're using the same axis all the way around, so you can't swap and change it, otherwise your rotor magnet, the part that's moving, you would need to change that polarity as well. So you can't do that without a lot of, it's not going to be feasible. You need to keep the same pole on the rotary part and just have this part the same pole all the way around. I think that's part of the reason why some people get stuck with this, but yeah, it's a theory right now. It's what I've been working on in the last few days, but it's kind of a follow-up really to what some of the stuff I was doing, the magnetic switch in 2016. So anyway, I'm waiting for some filament, some 3D filament to print this stator out, and I'm going to assemble some kind of easy rotor assembly that can basically pivot around a bearing in the center, that can pivot around the outside of this to try it out. So yeah, I just want to go over that to explain some of the things that I pretty much come to an understanding that, because you see, normally what happens is the field is the south field is so strong on this point that it can't escape the velocity. So, but what's happening here is the field is collapsing on itself. It's basically going around and shorting out on itself. It's collapsing down to a point where it tapers away because it's in the central axis. So what we effectively have is a field that's going around in this direction instead of on the outside, which is in that direction, because that situation wouldn't work, because the field would basically it would just bounce about and stick. But because it's been brought into the central axis, it's no longer influencing the rotor assembly, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, just a little bit of an explanation, and I'll keep you posted. So bye for now.